What was the lowest level you can beat Pokemon Red and Blue using a Mew? We are on Laurely. So I got the Mew for fun, but it got me thinking, what is the lowest level I could beat the Elite Four with this Mew? So level 36 is when Mew's speed gets to 81, which is one more than the Dugong, so we're able to outspeed. I get really, really lucky. I don't know why. It's just going for Growl. I promise you, I did this like 20 times, and this is the only time I use Growl that much. Normally, it would do an Aurora Beam, which would put me down to below, around a quarter, and then something else would take me out. But so that was fine. And then Cloyster's got pretty bad special, so we just go ahead and use Thunderbolt on it twice and knock it out. And then we level up, which is pretty sweet because I do have Mimic. So we're gonna go ahead and Mimic Amnesia on the Slowbro. Again, this does two things for us. It does three things. It raises our special attack and special defense, which is just one stat in Gen 1. And then it's also going to give us the badge boost, which is going to help out with speed and other defenses. And I'm also getting pretty lucky here. Not that Water Gun is too big of a threat, but it was just going for withdrawal a lot. That was a misclick. I did not mean to use Earthquake. So we're going to go ahead and use Thunderbolt. And then we get a critical hit to make up for that mistake I made. Then we knock out the Slowbro. So the Jinx is the only thing I'm really worried about here. We really don't want to see an Ice Punch because we don't want to get frozen. I just stick with Thunderbolt because we do have all that special. So Double Slap is sweet. It does hardly anything. And then we use Thunderbolt to take it out. And then we just had the Lapras left. I do level up, which isn't ideal, but that's fine. And then we go ahead and Thunderbolt the Lapras. And we're going to get so close to knocking it out, but not quite, but that's okay. Because she goes for a retroactive Super Potion, and then we use a Thunderbolt to finish it off. So the question I ask you is, what is the lowest level you can beat Pokemon Red and Blue using a Mew? We are on to Bruno. So for Bruno, we're going to go ahead and Mimic Harden. And then we're going to use Harden 6 times. We are at such a low level, level 38, which is pretty impressive. So even though we are going to benefit from the badge boost just a little bit, the main reason we are using Harden is just for the defense. Because once the Hitmonchan goes down, there's no more special moves we need to worry about. So we're just going to go ahead and do that a couple times. And then we're going to knock the Onix out with Blizzard. You could also use Earthquake, but Onix has really good defense, so Blizzard is the better move. And in Gen 1, Blizzard is 90% accurate, which is just insane. And there are 3 PP ups in the game, so I did use 2 of them on Blizzard because I'm going to be using Blizzard quite a bit here. Another thing to note is Mew can learn every TM in the game. I don't do a whole lot of move switching in this run, as you'll come to see, but it does know fun things like Transform and Metronome, which is pretty cool, and you could probably have a lot of fun with that. You could also go as a physical attacker and teach it Swords Dance, but I think Gen 1 through 3, it's physical or special depending on type, not depending on the move. Like Flare Blitz would be considered a special move in Gen 1 because it's a fire type. So I'm glad they fixed that, but we're just going to go ahead and just take care of Bruno here. Bruno never is too much of a challenge, especially with the move Mimic. Kind of helps us defeat him. I could have used Swords Dance and just done a bunch of Earthquaking, if we didn't have that option. So there you go, there's Bruno. Don't forget to like, comment, follow. Even just a small comment helps. And then look at us, we make a big decision here, and we do not learn Psychic for Agatha. So the question I ask you is, what is the lowest level you can beat Pokemon Red and Blue using a Mew? We are on to Agatha. So at the end of Bruno, we grew to level 40, and we had the opportunity to learn Psychic. Now we declined to learn Psychic, even though it would have gave us a stab bonus. I just felt having a physical type move in Earthquake was better. And even though we don't get the stab bonus, we're still going to get the super effective bonus. And I'm going to need a physical type move if I'm going to beat the Alakazam at the end. And we knock out the Gengar in one hit, so that was pretty sweet. And then here we're going to go for Thunderbolt. We don't go for Blizzard because either way it's a 2-hit KO. So I'd rather go for the 100% accurate move as opposed to the 90% accurate move. Now, I don't think we talk about it, or I don't think we have talked about it before, but there is something in Gen 1 called the 1 in 256 glitch, where moves that are supposed to be 100% accurate, every 1 over 256 percent, whatever that is, it has that percent chance to miss because of the way the game was coded. So the Golbat did confuse us, but then it hazed and got rid of it for us. That was pretty nice of the Golbat there. And then it must have been quite a range on the first Thunderbolt because it looked like it was about half, but it wasn't. And Golbat just keeps going for haze, so that is pretty sweet. So we're going to get lucky there and be able to knock that out. So we've got 3 Pokemon left to go. What comes out next is a Haunter. And remember, in Gen 1, they don't have abilities, so there is no Levitate, so we're just good to go on our Earthquake. So we go ahead and use Earthquake. It does outspeed us, which is unfortunate. It does get a Nightshade off, but that's okay. I've gotten pretty lucky up to this point. So we go ahead and go for the Earthquake. And remember, Earthquake is super effective, so it is going to go ahead and take out this Haunter. So just the Arbok and the Gengar are left. Even though I got lucky with a critical hit Earthquake in the beginning, this is why I felt pretty comfortable not having Psychic. No, of course, I did not know I was going to get so many critical hits and make this way easier, but so far Lorelie and Agatha have been so lucky and in my favor. The RNG is definitely on my side. So I get a lucky Toxic, whether it would have hit or not, really wouldn't have mattered. And then we're going to go for Earthquake here. It's probably going to be about a 2-hit KO. Unless we get another critical hit. There we go. So very lucky, very, very lucky. But that's what it's all about. Don't forget to drop a comment. If you have any questions, please let me know. But the question I ask you is, what is the lowest level you can beat Pokemon Red and Blue using a Mew? We are on to Lance. So Mew does have the coverage going for it, so we're going to go ahead and Thunderbolt Gyarados, 2 times super effective, critical hit, stood no chance. And keep in mind, we're only level 42. We're going to go ahead and then use Blizzard. Remember, Blizzard is 90% accurate in Gen 1, so that's pretty sweet. And then we're going to go for Earthquake, just to preserve PP, because how you use your PP is so important. And then we level up here. But even so, we're not going to take advantage of the badge boost. We're just going to go for it. So we go ahead and Blizzard. And then we're going to do the same thing we just did. We're going to use an Earthquake just to preserve that PP. We could have set up some agility to try to outspeed the Aerodactyl, but at the end of the day, what's the Aerodactyl really going to do to us unless we got like bad supersonic luck, which we got good supersonic luck. So we're going to go ahead and Thunderbolt. Critical hit, how lucky for us, and then all we have left is the Dragonite, and Blizzard is going to be 2 times super effective. And even though that's the case, it's still not going to take out the Dragonite, just because we are level 44. And then Lance is playing games with the Hyper Potion. I miss. It goes Hyper Beam. But Mew is a god amongst Pokemon. So we go ahead and I go for the Thunderbolt just to see what happened. Not very much, but the Dragonite had to recharge anyway, so we could go right for the Blizzard here and get the KO. 1 more to go. So the question I ask you is, what is the lowest level you can beat Pokemon Red and Blue using a Mew? We are on to Blue. So the Pidgeot's not really a big deal no matter what it does, because it's going to be a 2-hit KO. Wing Attack doesn't really do that much. I think the worst thing that could happen is that Mir moves a Thunderbolt and we get paralyzed, which would just be a reset, but that didn't happen. And then we're going to go ahead and Mimic Recover on the Alakazam just to be safe. This was actually my first attempt, so I wasn't really sure if I was going to use it, but I just would rather have it than not. Then I go ahead and use Earthquake. Now I know I could have taught Mew Dig and then learned Psychic to use that for Agatha and then taught Earthquake before this battle, but we just didn't go down that road, so it's fine. But having Earthquake to take care of the Alakazam was nice, and then we're going to go ahead and Blizzard Rhydon because its special is so bad, just like Onix. That Leer is not ideal, because we are going to level up enough to where it's not going to help us too much with the badge boost. But we go ahead and take down the Rhydon. Then we have Arcanine, again another reason why I wanted Earthquake. Just gave me better coverage than Psychic would have. Roar doesn't do anything, same with Whirlwind, they don't do anything when your opponent uses them. So that was pretty free, so we just have the 2 Pokemon left. I got full HP and I have Recover. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see Hypnosis, so I go ahead and I go for a Blizzard. And it tanks it pretty well. It's looking like a 3-hit KO with Blizzard. Luckily, Blizzard is 90% accurate, so we can hit pretty reliably with it. And I don't need it for anything else other than Executor, so I can just go ahead and spam it. And then we're just going to go ahead and Thunderbolt the Blastoise a whole bunch of times. Blizzard would be the only concern that the Blastoise would use if it were to freeze me. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty confident. We go for another Thunderbolt here, and we get a critical hit. There we go. So, Mew's a freaking goat. That was awesome. That was really fun. So the question I ask you is,